Okay, so Nick, you're very welcome. Thank you so much for agreeing to chat with us about the Fujitsu Junior Talent Program. And Nick, maybe you could tell us a bit about what you do at Fujitsu.
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks, Joe. So my role is head of junior talent at Fujitsu. So that means I'm responsible for everything to do with all of our graduates and apprentices across all of Europe. So I have a real vested interest in how we attract, how we recruit, how we onboard, and more importantly, I suppose, how we develop our graduates and apprentices for their early careers at Fujitsu.
Sounds like a really big project or ongoing role.
Yeah, it's the best role in the company.
Yeah.
I think I think it's really varied. I think it's a role in HR which isn't just one specialism. It's talent development, it's L&D, it's recruitment, it's employer brand, but actually there's quite a lot of generalist stuff in there as well. Actually, how do we ensure that they have high engagement? How do we ensure they have a good experience, etc. So I think it's one of the best jobs in the company, actually.
It comes across, definitely comes across. I see your communications around it, and also the communications of the participants, the people who are in the Junior Talent Program as well. So clearly it's an exciting area to be in. What has been the driver for Fujitsu Junior Talent?
Yeah, so we've always recruited early career talent, and I think the need and the purpose of it is probably been on a bit of a journey. So I think a number of years ago, 10 plus years ago, when the graduate program was first set up, it was very much around kind of developing high potential people to be the leaders of our organization in the future. And that is still part of the reason that we recruit graduates and apprentices. We want to ensure that we do have a pipeline of leadership talent in our organization. But I think actually we need to understand that actually if we recruit 150 people, not all 150 people will be a leader of our organization in 10, 15 years. Some of them will leave, some of them will reach their potential, but actually some of them, and we do have people on our leadership team who started as graduates and apprentices. I think what we've seen over the past number of years is our industry has changed quite a lot. And actually we're in demand of real technical skill right now, which we probably didn't, 10, 15 years ago, we didn't get through graduate and apprentice programs. Apprentice programs in technical subjects just didn't exist. Apprenticeships were in the likes of plumbing, electricians. To do an apprenticeship in cyber 15 years ago just didn't exist. And actually, over the past 4 or 5 years, those opportunities have been made available, which I think is really fantastic.
Yeah.
So I think the demand from our business in terms of what they need in terms of early career isn't just about we need some high potential people to fill our leadership pipeline. It's also about we need some really technical people, because we need to be communicating with our customers. We need to be developing applications. We need to be migrating our customers onto the cloud. We need to be better understanding their data. So we need those really technical people. But actually, gone are the days where technical people would sit in the basement and do coding and analyze data and never talk with the customer.
Yeah.
Actually, that skill is super important right now. So we actually need, really rounded people that we can develop with excellent communication skills, excellent stakeholder management skills, as well as the technical knowledge to do some of that stuff as well.
That's interesting. So it's developed. So your remit for junior talent has kind of developed over the years based on how things have changed.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think we've seen just a fundamental shift in our industry.
Yeah.
You know, we used to be an organization which was an IT infrastructure outsourcing organization. So, you know, if a company needed support with, you know, their device had broken, we'd provide them with a service desk. You know, if they needed network support, we'd provide them with a network. But actually, the skills that we require now, that our customers need us to have, as I say, are in the cyberspace. How do we keep their estate secure? How do we migrate a lot of their applications to the cloud so that they can be much more agile and much more hybrid? How do we better understand their data to drive real insight into their data? And how can we bespoke their applications and develop new applications for them?
Yeah, and that, so the skills that you're looking for in your apprentices and graduates are more rounded, but primarily technical, as you said.
It is still a mix. You know, it absolutely is still a mix. You know, we still need, you know, the type of roles which are around managing the customer relationship. You know, we need some of the roles which are business consultants to go in and consult with our customers and kind of understand some of their needs, kind of drive some of the opportunities, salespeople to drive through sales. So it is split, but I have definitely seen more of an uptake of, actually, we need more technical early career talent. Rather than, as I said previously, we'd buy that technical talent in at a professional level, which was just not sustainable for us.
Yeah, yeah. So you're building it, developing it internally then. That's great. So, yeah. So would it be possible for you to describe some of the elements of the program?
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. So we're kind of really conscious, I suppose, that the skills to be successful in the world of work are very, very different to the skills to be successful in the world of education. And I think that's kind of really shaped the kind of the elements, right? So, you know, when you're at school, when you're at university, you know, you're told to be quiet and not talk to your neighbour, right? Kind of put your head down and kind of get on.
Yeah.
Actually, in the world of work, you can't do your job unless you're talking to people, to your neighbour, and finding out information and collaborating together. So we're really, really conscious of that transition. And we kind of wrap, as well as kind of role-specific training, we wrap a 2-year development program around all of our graduates and apprentices, which kind of helps them in 4 different stages. The first stage is about helping them to understand the organization that they have found themselves in. So Fujitsu, you know, we are a big, complex organization. Even I don't understand every single thing that we do. You know, so I think it's, you know, it's helping them to understand the organization that they're with and the industry in which we're working at, because as I say, that's changing exponentially. So I think it's important they understand the organization as well as the wider context in which we are operating in. And then we help them to understand themselves. Okay, so actually kind of what drives my behavior and what impact am I having on other people, and how can I start to adapt my style, okay, that has made me successful so far in the world of education, but actually kind of recognizing I might need to deploy different skills. What's my impact on other people, and how might I adapt my style? And actually, you can't do that until you understand yourself, first of all. And then what's my role in a team, and what's my role as a leader, and what's my impact on others in a team, and what's my impact as a leader? Because, you know, we're not expecting these guys to lead business areas and develop strategy, but we will be expecting them to lead small project teams, to lead small packets of customer work, to lead workshops, etc. So actually, with that comes a different set of skills as well. And then the last bit towards the end of their 2 years is very much around helping them to understand what has been my career so far? What have I really enjoyed? What have I not enjoyed? What are some of my strengths? What are some of my development areas? But more importantly, what does the next 2, 3, 4 years look like in Fujitsu when I might not have a program wrapped around me? And how do I kind of sustain some of that development and that career trajectory and be a bit more independent with it? So it falls into those 4 areas here.
It's interesting. There's a lot there, I think, about self-awareness and giving them the chance to reflect.
Yeah, absolutely. So in all of those 4 different areas, we generally kind of aim for something to happen about once a month. So whether that's a webinar, whether that's an actual kind of event, whether that's an action learning set that we have.
Yeah.
But actually kind of throughout all of this is a good opportunity for reflection and feedback. Kind of, as you said, it plays a big part in development.
Yeah. And so what effects have you seen then, particularly adding the apprenticeship in, because that's relatively new, isn't it? The idea of bringing apprentices in as part of your junior talent program. Have you seen any effects on the organisation of that coming through? Yet, or is that too soon to say?
Yeah, so I think so it's really interesting. We used to recruit apprentices ad hocly within the organisation. So someone wanted an apprentice, they could get one. We'd recruit one in February in Manchester, another 2 in April in Telford, another 3 in Bracknell in April and May. Whereas our graduate program was a once-a-year intake starting in September. And the feedback from our apprentices was very much around, actually, they kind of struggle might be too strong of a word, but it's a challenge to build a network around them, help to understand the business in which they operate. And we kind of thought, well, actually, kind of, why don't we follow the same structure as our graduate program? A lot of apprentices are school leavers, so actually they'll be finishing school around about the same time as graduates finish university. So it's great for recruitment. We have a pool of talent that we can tap into. And then actually, if we bring them all in together, they benefit from the network. And we can then wrap a program around them as well. So I think it's absolutely brilliant, and it will help it has helped our apprentices feel connected to the organisation, feel as if they get to know and understand the organisation in which they are working in, and as they have got that support structure around them. I think what we've seen a real difference in, so just pure and hard fast numbers, our apprentice retention is far greater than a graduate retention, which is really interesting. I think what we've started to put some principles in place is, well, actually, why would we select to recruit an apprentice for this type of role versus a graduate? I think we've come up with a few kind of rules and principles, I suppose, around that. So actually, for a lot of our technical roles, we now prefer to recruit an apprentice. And there's a few reasons for that. So actually, the role of technology is changing so quickly that actually what a graduate might learn at university, by the time they come to graduate 3 years later, could be outdated. So and technical STEM skills are quite vocational. So actually, if you want to learn how to code, you just need to go and code. Right? You can sit in a lecture, you can kind of do all that stuff, and that's valuable. I'm not, I'm not kind of saying
Yeah.
you should do that, but actually the best experience is then just getting on and actually doing it, learning a bit, and then actually going off and applying it.
Yeah.
So actually, so a lot of our technical roles, our preference is now to recruit apprentices. For some of our business customer facing roles, we prefer to recruit graduates. And what that kind of means is we can very quickly put them in front of a customer quite early on, because some of those more rounded skills they've learned at university.
Already. Yeah.
The kind of some of the influencing and negotiation skills when living in a shared house for the first time, about someone hasn't done their fair share of the cleaning or done the washing up, or they've done group work as part of their university course. Actually, we kind of find that some of those skills and that I suppose level of maturity is another 3-4 years advanced, and actually kind of putting them in front of a customer within their first month or their first 6 months is a bit more palatable for the individual, right? Kind of quite scary, kind of facing off to a customer for the first time who might be a bit angry or kind of needs to give some constructive feedback, as well as the organization. So it's not a hard and fast rule, kind of there's always kind of exceptions to it, but they're the principles in which we're operating to.
Yeah. It sounds like you've really learned as you've gone along with the program as well.
Yeah, I think so. I think we're always looking to tweak it. We have every year we have junior talent ambassadors, which kind of represent the views of the whole community to us, kind of to me, the wider team. And actually, it's a good source to kind of say this didn't work quite well. This is some of the feedback, and they've been great. So some of the things that they put in place, they've introduced a well-being call kind of every 2 months, where we'll get our mental health first aiders on, and it's a free open space for people to talk about anything they want to talk about. They wrote a new starters welcome guide about kind of this is everything that we wish we'd known, and that kind of gets distributed out. They have set up an interesting buddy system for kind of people. So actually, it's great feedback, but also they work on projects which will help just to increase the overall experience of the new incoming cohort as well.
It sounds like you've got a great culture there. I mean, we know we've worked with you guys, Fujitsu, for a long time, and there's definitely, as I see it, a strong culture of feedback. Would you say that has helped the program, the Junior Talent program, in any way?
I think so, and I think there's always more that we can do, right? And I think it is always quite difficult sometimes to get views of the best part of kind of 300 people, and do the right type of changes. I think there's always more that we can do, and I think anything we can do to listen more and act more upon feedback, I think it's something we could always do better. But I'd like to think that as the kind of the main bits of feedback and kind of have come up, we've always reacted to them and changed things and redesigned things and put new things in place.
So they can see those changes happening when they've given the feedback. They can actually see that some of those outcomes have happened because of their feedback.
I'd like to think so. Yeah.
Yeah. Sounds like it. So what would you say would be your main challenges or main challenge with the program?
Yes, I think interesting point. I think there is. So I think certainly over the last year, so I think one of the benefits of joining a graduate program, an apprentice program, is actually you all join at the same time. You all benefit from a network, which is really, really different from joining an organization as a professional hire, right? You might be one person joining the HR function. You might be one person joining the sales function. and it's up to you to build your own network, right? Kind of, you'll get help and you'll get support. But actually, one of the real benefits of a graduate program, apprentice program, is you'll join with 150 other people. You know someone in every part of the organization, and actually kind of our role is to kind of get them working together. And certainly over the last year, that has been a bit more difficult with everyone joining and working from home.
Yes.
And I'm just really conscious as restrictions are lifting, how do we, so I think we've done a good job virtually. We've had lots of networking sessions. As I say, we try to do something once a month, whether that's something developmental or just something fun, where we actually get the group together so they can see each other, they get to know each other. But now that, as I say, restrictions are lifting a bit, and we can do more. And Fujitsu, although the UK-wide restrictions have lifted, Fujitsu as a responsible organisation still has restrictions, which I think is right. We look after national infrastructure. We're responsible for keeping the organisation running, and actually we need to be responsible to our workforce and not kind of be any type of catalyst for spread of the virus as well. So I think I'm really conscious about how do we get that back together, and I'm starting to see a few early concerns, I suppose, about people are quite comfortable working from home now. And actually part of our standard work practice going forward will be work your way. So actually we are not going to demand people come back into the office full time. We've carried on working for the best part of 2 years virtually. So actually we know we can do it. And actually, people will come back into offices and meet people when there's a need, or if someone wants to. And I think that's brilliant. It's real flexible working kind of. Now, what I've done with our intake is I've organised just a social, right? Kind of, get people together. And actually, what I've seen is uptake of people wanting to go is not as popular as I thought it would be.
Right.
And I think I'm yet to fully understand why, but my kind of perception is, well, actually, people are quite comfortable working from home and they don't know any different, especially the intake that we've had. But actually, the benefits of getting to know someone personally, more so than it might be a bit more transactional kind of virtually, someone getting to know someone on a deeper level, just builds a more solid foundation for any type of relationship or any type of networking. So I think there's a challenge for me in how do we still maintain the benefits of virtual working, but still ensure that people get the opportunity to connect more so than virtually and build those relationships. So I think that's going to be a challenge and something we need to monitor kind of going forward. I think so. Another challenge for me is actually kind of, so recent news in the UK kind of news is job vacancies is up, right? So it's a real candidate market right now, which a year ago no one was looking to leave, right? You were lucky if you were still in a role. So actually the market has just fundamentally changed in the past 12 months. So I suppose whilst people I'd like to think get a great experience in their 2 years when we've got a fantastic program around them, how do we ensure that post 2 years, there's actually still a level of interest in the organisation, still a focus on development, still a focus on the right type of opportunities, so actually they still feel connected with Fujitsu, and I want to be really conscious and really monitor, do we have an attrition problem kind of 2 years after program, and make sure that that doesn't dip.
Yeah, it's a challenge, isn't it? I think for a lot of organisations at the moment.
Yeah, absolutely.
Thought, yeah, after, as you say, this time last year, or 2 months ago, was completely the other way around.
It was, yeah, it really was. People clinging on to their roles, and then there's just been this boom as kind of we come out of restrictions, and actually kind of a lot of other companies who might have held off doing stuff are now kind of saying, right, actually we need to go full throttle. Some people have made just real life choices over the pandemic of, I don't, I want to do something fundamentally different with my life. So yeah, I think we've seen a real shift in the recruitment market. And actually, as employers, we need to get really laser focused on what is our employee value proposition, what's our employee, and why do people want to come and work for us, and why do people should stay with us as well.
Indeed. Yeah. Thanks, Nick. Is there anything else, any other observations about the programme, or any other things that you've learned personally from the role that you've been in with Junior Talent?
Yeah, so I think definitely. So I think definitely don't underestimate that kind of that transition from the world of education to the world of work. As I say, I think skills to be successful are really different. So much so, we really redesigned our recruitment criteria. So we used to have, for our graduate program, we used to request academic achievements, certain number of UCAS points, and at least a 2-1. And a few years ago, we kind of said, well, actually, by that logic, do people who have a first, do they perform better than people who have a 2-1? And we did the analysis. And there's no correlation. There's no correlation whatsoever.
Right.
Which ended up us kind of dropping kind of academic requirements into our graduate program, which I think was kind of really successful, and we didn't see a drop in quality of the candidates. We still have quite a rigorous recruitment process, but actually academic requirements weren't on part of that. And then we've applied the same to our apprentice positions. Now, where we do have academic requirements, it's generally from the apprentice training provider. So actually they need a certain level to say, well, actually, you're still studying for something academic. We need to understand you have the capability to do that. Now, where someone then hasn't achieved their grades, but actually they've gone through our recruitment process, we would then have a conversation with the provider, the individual, and their manager to say, well, actually, can we still wrap the same amount of support to help them complete their academic studies, because we think that they have a great opportunity to be successful in our organisation. And at 100% of the time, that conversation's happened, and they've still got onto the course or the apprenticeship that we'd like to get onto. But I think certainly kind of not underestimating that kind of that transition and the skills that are important. And then, as you say, kind of whatever things you put in place to help them with their development, I think needs to be really interactive, really fun, and with a heavy emphasis on feedback and reflection, as you said there. Towards the end of their module. So for me personally, I think there are 2 highlights to our program. One happens in year 1, one happens in year 2. And in year 1, it is something called leadership in action. And it's very much, before the pandemic, it was a residential module. We've converted all of that to be virtual, but you're working in small teams. and you have a number of problems and kind of situations and challenges that you have to solve in a bit of a time limit, and someone's leading the group through that. And then you get a load of feedback, right? Kind of, how did you lead that team? You know, was everyone involved? As a team member, how did you contribute to success? And, you know, every 45 minutes, you know, they're getting some really, really rich feedback. And then actually the afternoon kind of their last day is some real hot seat feedback, you know. So over the course of kind of 2 or 3 days, let's kind of give you the gift of feedback around how you're doing it. And it's fun, it's light-hearted. The challenges are, you know, fun challenges, etc. People love it. And that's year one. In year two, we do something called Launchpad, which is very much around helping them to understand where's their career going. And we use 360-degree feedback through yourselves. And you know, people have collected 360-degree feedback from managers, peers, colleagues, and they've self-rated themselves as well. And the energy is much more reflective. So it's not high energy like leadership and action, but it's much more reflective. It's much more around what's your journey been for the past 2 years? What have you really enjoyed? Who's your role model? What are some of your gaps? What has the 360-degree feedback given you? What are some of your gaps there? What are some of your strengths there? It's much more reflective. It's much more, I don't want to say serious, but it's not as high energy. And I would have always said people would have really preferred the high energy, fun leadership and action, and they do. We get some fantastic feedback. But 90% of delegates, I got so much from that Launchpad module and the 360 and the feedback and the opportunity to reflection. You know, it's really, really opened my eyes. It's been the best thing on the program so far. So I think kind of what I'm trying to say is, you know, anything that you do with them shouldn't be a lecture, right? It shouldn't be chalk and talk. It shouldn't be, here's some information, here's a theory, here's a model. You need to give people that kind of time to reflect, to experiment, to play, but more importantly, get the feedback off it, right? So kind of some theory, some knowledge, a bit of experimentation with behavior, but then follow it up with feedback and reflection at the end of it. And that kind of pattern just helps people to reinforce the right type of behaviors, but then the right type of mindset as well. So I think, you know, absolutely, if you're putting together development programs, don't make it boring, right? Don't make it lecture driven, don't make it theory driven. Build in that experimentation with behaviors, build in some fun, but massively importantly, build in that feedback.
Got it. Thank you. Nick, thank you so much for sharing your insights and, you know, all about the Junior Talent Programme. I've learned lots. I've learned a lot from what you've been talking about. Thank you again, and I appreciate the time you've taken. I know our watchers and listeners will be really interested in what you've talked about. So many thanks.
No worries, it's been great talking, and happy to connect with anyone who wants a conversation if anyone's listening to this. So yeah, absolutely.
Fantastic. Thanks, Nick.
Great, thanks, Joe.
Take care.
Bye.